In the Japanese culture, they call it kaizen, which is a constant commitment to lifetime learning and improvement. And I found that just kind of resonated with me when I read the book, The Toyota Way by Jeffrey Leichner. And that led me to a number of other books. And now that I look back here 30 plus years later, I realize that I've read about 500 business books over my career.
Welcome to People Make Roofing, a call to action led by Roofing Talent America and rooferscoffeeshop.com. We're tackling the industry's biggest challenges, from outdated misconceptions to the widening skills gap. Our mission? To show the next generation the true potential of roofing, including the diverse opportunities, endless growth possibilities, and a chance to make a lasting impact. Join us as we share unfiltered stories from the industry professionals across North America, inspiring and guiding the future of roofing.
Hello, this is People Make Roofing. I am your co-host, Luke McCormack of Roofing Talent America.
And I am your other co-host, Heidi Ellsworth with The Coffee Shops. And we are so honored to be here today with one of the leading roofing professionals. I have to tell, I've known for many years, Ken Kelly. And we are excited to talk to him about roofing and the future of roofing. Welcome to People Make Roofing, Ken.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you both.
So great. We would love to have you introduce yourself. Tell us about you, your roofing history, and what you're doing right now.
Okay, great question. So I'll start in the reverse order. I'm actually retired, but I'm still lurking around the roofing industry. When I retired 2 years ago, I just felt like there was a ton of experience and knowledge that was trapped up in my head, and it would be wrong to not help people in the roofing industry like so many had helped me when I was going through my journey. So going back to the beginning, I saw my dad fall off a roof in front of me, crushing both of his wrists coming right out of high school, took over the family business, ended up growing that from one employee who quit, by the way, and I had to do everything myself for the first couple of years, all the way to the point where we won Roofing Contractor of the Year, Microsoft's Visionary Award, sold to private equity, helped do some acquisitions, and really had a great career in roofing. Love this industry, and I can't wait to share some of my ideas about where we're headed here with you all.
Well, Ken, it's an amazing introduction, and you really are the epitome of the type of guest that we look to bring onto this campaign. I started this campaign 6 years ago. It was April 2019, and it came from a place, Ken, of being in this industry and being surrounded by exceptional people that give back, want to help others. And I realised that the reality of the people that make roofing is so far away sometimes from the preconceptions that people out with the industry have. And when I came on this journey to shine the light on the industry and the people within it, it was really important to me to find people like you, because we want to get your story, we want to get your knowledge, your voice in front of school leavers, college leavers, teachers, parents, career guidelines counsellors. And when I met you, Ken, knowing that you've retired, you've sold your business, and you're still, essentially giving a massive part of your life pro bono just to give back to the industry. I respect that a lot, and I'm very grateful to have you on the campaign. So thank you for joining us.
Of course, my pleasure.
So Ken, I know we know what inspired you with your dad and that terrible fall, and really, but at that point in your life, there probably in some ways it wasn't a choice, right? It was more, I have to do this for my family. I need to take care of this. So as you got into roofing and started hiring more people after that one gentleman left, what were some of the things that really inspired you to continue and pursue this career with roofing, to stick with it? Because you could have gone different directions.
Yeah, good question. It actually stems from before the accident. So as I was raised, my dad was a great roofer. From a technical standpoint, he knew roofing, but he didn't have the professional business training that would lead him to grow and sustain a larger company. So we kind of struggled growing up. Even though we were business owners, it was tough making payroll, and that was most weeks. And what I tried to do when I was going through my schooling is study things or take notes on things that were being taught to me that I could come home, show dad, and say, hey, if you try this, I think it'll help. I think it'll make it a better business. It'll give you more free time. You'll have more money, and all the things that we as entrepreneurs expect, right? We want more time, we want more security, we want more freedom. And it's not until we get into business that we realize we have less time, less security, and less freedom, as it's said in the book, The E Myth by Michael Gerber. And I lived that, I saw it. And he just didn't have the capacity to implement those ideas. So when I had the chance to start changing things, I saw success. And that's where it led me to realize that in any industry, it really needs to be a balance, this dichotomy between trades knowledge and, if you're running the business, business knowledge. And so that's what I really attribute to where I am today. Just really understanding that you have to be good at both sides of the industry, business and the trade.
Ken, that I find that very interesting. When we started this podcast, this campaign, it was all about shining a light on people like you to bring your message to the people who influence where young people go next. But then, with the type of guests that Heidi and I have been meeting, we've been getting really great business advice from CEOs, executives, business builders, and we've been sharing that with other people within the industry. And I know that, probably in this year alone, you've been in front of, thousands of contractors. And, I always see two different people: the roofer who becomes a roofing business owner, or someone who's very much like a businessman that gets into roofing. In the way that you've done it with the Microsoft partnership and, having to really do it all yourself, it's an impactful story that's always stood out to me. And what I'd like to start with is, when you look at the roofing contracting market, Ken, and you're working with all these contractors on their operational efficiency, trying to get into financial freedom, what are the top problems that contractors face when they're trying to scale? What are the sort of main things that they just leave as an afterthought, or things that they never actually face or overcome? I'd love to start there with what you've seen as the biggest problems.
Well, I've got two that come to mind immediately because it's almost industry wide. The first one is we have an inability to delegate. We want to control everything, and that's really just a visionary trait. And number two is we tend to make decisions based on emotions, not on fact. And the worst time to make a decision is when you're emotional. So let's start with that one. So many people don't know their numbers. They really don't know how they're performing. They know they're working hard. They're seeing roofs being installed. They see a little bit of cash in the bank. They have good relationships with both their customers, their vendors, and their employees. But at the end of the day, they get to a certain point. It's typically somewhere right around the $3 to $5 million range, and they can't seem to get past that, right? If they work super, super hard, and they might convince maybe some family members, a spouse, a brother, a cousin, to come and work with them, maybe a friend from high school or college. All of a sudden they might be able to get closer to that $7.5 million level, but then that's as far as they can go. And the reason why is because they're making these decisions based on emotion, not understanding what their true performance numbers are. And I think as an industry, one thing that we can do immediately to really help level the playing field and understand how we're doing is to come up with a score that every company can use regardless of what they're in. They can be in storm, they can be retail, commercial, residential, repair, replacement. Doesn't matter. If we use EBITDA as our determining factor of success, we will be much better off as an industry. And EBITDA, of course, is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's basically the performance profitability of our company before all the noise gets thrown in there. If we can start with that and know that every company in the roofing industry should be doing at least 10% EBITDA on a regular basis or more, that's a great place to start saying, hey, here's some sick companies and here's some companies that are performing well. The other side is, as a visionary, as someone who started our companies, we have this sense of responsibility. We made promises to customers. We made promises to employees or promises to vendors that are helping us as we continue to grow our company. And we have a hard time delegating tasks or responsibilities or duties to others. And what happens is we get this select group of people around us, those that we really, really trust in our inner circle, and we work them to the bone. And we actually grow to a certain size, maybe that 3 to 7 million mark. But we can't get past that because we feel as leaders that we need to be a part of everything that's happening in that business. And that's just not true. If we have a decent training program, if we recruit people with a good heart, you don't necessarily need the skill. As a matter of fact, I'd argue that a lot of times you don't want someone with the skill. You want someone who's a good person, who's capable of learning, who wants to do things right, who believes in your vision. You give them a little training, you set up a metric or a scorecard, a number that they are responsible for, and you just let them go to work. You'll realize that one, they will perform, and many times better than you can, because that's their full-time job and they get good at it. And as long as that metric is the right metric, you'll realize that you can manage that individual, see when they're going off the tracks just a little bit, help coach, train, get them back on the way we want them to go, and then go back to doing what leaders should be doing, which is creating an organizational culture and vision for that company.
I love that. I love that. And you've really exemplified that throughout your career, Ken, as I've watched you. I know you've been very active with EOS, and we also are an EOS company. And so what you're saying, a lot of it really resounds with me. But I think you are right, is that is really hard for business owners to let go, trust, and move to that next level. So what are some of the things that you did in your career and in your journey as a businessman to kind of take that step to really let go and trust your folks? And because I watched you go from very hands-on to that next level. And I'm always curious, how did you do that?
Well, it's actually continuous training. In the Japanese culture, they call it kaizen, which is a constant commitment to lifetime learning and improvement. And I found that just kind of resonated with me when I read the book, The Toyota Way by Jeffrey Leichner. And that led me to a number of other books. And now that I look back here 30 plus years later, I realize that I've read about 500 business books over my career, every 2 to 3 weeks. And to be quite honest, I don't read well. Like, I have that learning disability where I really can't read. So I listen. And I listen to these books, first on tapes, then on CDs. Now, of course, we have Audible. But all of a sudden you realize, because you're driving all the time, you're consuming this knowledge. And it was through confirmation from some of the business greats that I realized it's okay to let go. It's okay to give them the ability. And then when I did, I finally realized, oh my gosh, they do it better than I do. Like, there's no one in my company, well, the company that I sold today, that I could go in and do their job better than. It's not that way anymore, right? I know when something's not right, and I know how to coach, or I know where to go to get the training that they need, but I couldn't do that, right? That's what's great about it. We are elevating those around us to be the best that they can be, and in the end, it helps the whole organization.
That's so cool. I love that. I love that so much. Luke?
That is very cool, Ken. We started our EOS journey ourselves, and it's funny. Like, there's a lot of actual roofing companies that do work on EOS in America. I've met a lot of them, and it's great to see. For the business owners that they are afraid to let go, what would your message be to those business owners? Because really, like, what's the actual process like? Do they need to look at their business in the granular detail, and then find the tasks that they don't want to do, give it to someone else? Like, what's the sort of full process for someone that realizes that they're stressed out, they've got no family time, they don't even have any personal time, they're not bringing their best self to the table, but they feel that they're on this reactive hamster wheel. Some people never get off it. But what would be your message to someone listening right now that's like, yeah, that is me, and yeah, good for you, Ken, but I can't do that? What's your message to that person?
Yeah, so let me back up and go through the 4 stages of what I call business growth. And we need to not only hit this wall, get up over the wall, but we need to stay at that level. Think of it as a plateau, right? So we hit this wall, we need to get up to the top and stay there. And the 4 walls look like this. When we first get started, or when we're a smaller organization, it's typically one individual who's running the show, and they might have one other person, maybe 2 other people that are helping them to help maybe answer phones, maybe do a little bookkeeping, maybe a little bit of sales, a little operational work, and then there's a sub crew or 2 who are out there performing the work. That organization is probably the most profitable you'll ever be. And it's actually the most efficient it will ever be because everything is running through that one individual who's running it. If an estimate comes in, they get the call. They go out and run the estimate. Then they get the job and they have to order the materials. They verify the purchase order. They make sure that the materials were delivered the way they were supposed to. They meet the crew. They do a start off. Then they make sure that the customer has any issues. They're resolved immediately and they walk away with the payment. What a great, efficient organization because everything's going through one person. And it's hard to get past that. But in order to get over that hump, you need to start depending on people. People are step two. To get over the first wall, you have to trust people. So you get yourself that group that we were talking about, people who you just promise them the dream, you recruit them, and they work just as hard as you do, and you trust them because they're friends or family. And now you've gotten to another level. But you can't get past it. There's another wall, and you might jump over it if there's a storm, but you're right back down when the times aren't good. So how do you stay at that level? Well, typically what happens is now we have to start recruiting and hiring individuals. And when you recruit and hire individuals, you have to now create a system or process that everyone is following because now we have two people doing sales. We have two people that are answering the phone, two people that are out managing crews. And we need the same consistent experience. The things that we realized that worked really well back when we were by ourselves only continue to work if everyone is doing it. And then when you get over that wall and you start building a team, you realize that there's this crazy dichotomy of growth. The bigger the company gets, the smaller it gets. And let me give you an example. So back in the early days, I started up a repair division and I was very proud of my repair division and they were doing well and they were successful. They were profitable. It was leading to our production division. Huge fan. And what I would do in the back of the warehouse in this little tiny caged in area is I would have a shop drop of about $8,000 worth of material a week. I didn't really have a purchase order system. I just knew that anything that went into that cage, the only crew that was allowed to take anything from it was the repair crew. So at the end of the week or the end of the month, I would just simply take that invoice for those materials. I would expense it to repair materials, and I could see if that division was profitable. Worked pretty well. We eventually got to where we had 46 repair teams. That shop drop on a weekly basis was about $250,000. And then I realized we were funding the underground mafia. All of those years, I still didn't implement a purchase order system, and people could just take what they wanted. And it wasn't until I really started realizing after getting GPS systems in the trucks with cameras that there was a couple of our repair crews who were stopping by their personal residence on the way home before they got back to the shop every night. And what was happening? They were taking the extra materials, they were storing it at their place, and using a private investigator, we found out that they were selling that material for cash to our competition. Now, the irony of this whole situation is the gentleman who we ended up prosecuting for this and had to go to jail and made restitution and all that kind of stuff, we ended up rehiring 6 years later. So there's a dual thing here. You can make a mistake and you can recover from it. And as a matter of fact, I help him today as he has his own gutter business. So it's really funny how things come full circle. But the key here is we grew too big for an old process. We had to reinvent that process, implement the purchase ordering system, take our three mechanics, stand them in front of the much larger cage that it ended up being to make sure they were checking off all the material that was coming out every morning and counting the material that came in on our weekly shop drop so that everything was priced accordingly and we can see where there were any abnormalities and make sure that we were profitable consistently by crew and then, of course, by the aggregate by division. So that's what I mean. Never think that as you're growing your company, you figured it out. Because, yeah, you may have figured it out at the level you're at now, with the team that you have now, with the economy that you have now, or with the territory or geographic area that you're in now. But as you grow, as things change, you need to change with it. Now, you know I'm a pilot and I love flying. So I'm going to bring back one last analogy on this topic. And that is, if you ever look in the sky, you see these graceful birds flying around and they're just so beautiful. And you kind of think, gosh, I wish I could fly like that. Well, let me tell you what's going on in real life. They look graceful and they look beautiful, but every time the wind changes, those wings are instantly reacting to that change. And it looks like there's quite a bit of chaos that's going on if you look up real close. Same thing when we're flying. You know, we're sitting here adjusting that millions of times, if you will, up, down, left, right, drags, everything we have to take into consideration to maintain what looks like a stable and calm environment. And that's what it's like to be a leader of any company, not just roofing. Roofing, especially because we have a lot of variables. We have material delays, we have weather issues, customer changes, we have all kinds of things we have to deal with. And yes, you can never just coast. You can't just throttle back and think the company's going to continue to run forever. You don't have to be there every day. That's not reality. Eventually, your team will leave, competition will take you out, and this wonderful, incredible creation, this business that you made, will unfortunately start to fail.
You're just always got it ready. You've always got ammo, Ken, and every time I speak to you, it's like a free mentorship session.
I agree. I agree. I'm thinking about my own business and our own leadership team meeting coming up and how this all works into it. I love it, Ken. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy hearing all of this and what you're doing now, helping other people and consulting. And I know you're doing tons with Owens Corning, but one of the things that I think has had you really stand out during the time I've known you is just your love of technology and your embracement of technology from, winning a Microsoft award to everything that you've done. And I think there's a lot of young people out there who look at roofing and they think, not for me. It's the trades. It's not, I'm into robotics. I'm into all of these different things. Um, What's some of your advice to some of those young people coming in who really are technology forward on the opportunities in roofing?
Well, first of all, this is interesting. Since the 1960s, there's been a push to go to college. And the data has shown that those with college degrees end up performing better from a wage standpoint, salary standpoint, than those that are in the trades. For the first time since the 60s, that has shifted. So you look back, that's, 50, 60 years later, we're finally seeing trades now having higher compensation and without the potential debt burden that comes from going to college. Now, I'm not suggesting don't go to college. That's not my point. All I'm suggesting is for those that are thinking, hey, I might want to go to college, but then again, I like working outside. I like using my hands. College might not be the best for me. Only 46% of those who start college ever finish. So you got a 50-50 chance there from the beginning. And if you're thinking trades might be your way, might be the way, I strongly recommend at least giving it a shot. You can always go back. If you go into the trade, you're going to get a free education from your employer. You're going to get paid while you're doing it. And within 1 year, we see typically at least one promotion, most likely 2 or 3. And that means huge money. So now you have someone in college has to work 10 years to get to triple digit income, meaning $100,000 or more a year. Whereas in the trades, we typically see less than 5 before we're getting to that triple digit income. That's really impressive stats. So just from an economic standpoint and a lack of debt burden standpoint, I would recommend looking at the trades. Number 2 is when we're talking about the future, AI is going to cannibalize a lot of those jobs that we call information or expertise jobs that are today's college degrees. Now, my wife, as you know, she's a doctor. She's a pharmacist on the liver intestine transplant team at Miami. That's how we met. And what's amazing about her role is how much they're using AI in their jobs on a daily basis. And her job was, before she retired, keeping the patients alive while not rejecting the new transplant, right? So that's a delicate balance. And it's amazing how many drugs have interactions with other drugs and the type of diet that you're using or that you're consuming and all of the exterior influences, lack of exercise and so forth. She now using AI to answer questions about patients because it's not possible for a human brain to know everything and put it all together. So we're seeing it cannibalize some of those jobs that you might want to go into. So what does that mean for roofing? It means that the experiences, the trades, the service industries, those are going to continue to succeed long after AI is finished with this massive revolution that we're going to see happen. And then that leads us to robotics. Where are we headed with robotics? I don't know that as a roofer, as somebody who's coming out of high school, for instance, going in the trade, I like being outside. I like using my hands. but I don't know if I can stay on a roof for 30 years. I don't know that my back, my ankles, my hands can handle that. Well, I think robotics are going to play a major role in the next 10 years in our industry. We're already seeing robotics come in. For instance, Rufus with Renovate Robotics, they're bringing in a shingle installing robot that focuses just on that. But I think the major disruptor that we're going to see in the industry, and this is actually happening next year, is when you get humanoid robots with the dexterity of humans' hands and the balance and weight ratio of a human starts coming into the workforce, because we don't need to retool our entire industry. Something with the dexterity of a human can pick up a nail gun or a hammer or a knife or a tape measure that we have today and have been using forever, and just immediately start being productive. So there may be a capital issue, right? There may be a strong upfront cost to replace a human worker. We might see robots being too expensive to deploy right off the bat. But as capitalism continues to show how we continue to take these innovations and democratize them by having competition, that price will eventually fall. And the quality, the longevity, the capabilities of these robotics will continue to improve. And in the end, getting it on the ground floor, understanding the trade, being able to do those things to work side by side with a force multiplier in robotics will make you an incredibly efficient roofer or whatever trade you happen to go into. And it will help those that are running businesses keep ahead of the competition, be more successful, more profitable, and in the end, have a much better life than this revolution basically keeping them behind.
And when you, so, part of what we want to do, Ken, is take short clips from these interviews and share it with teachers, parents, career guidance counsellors, to these young people that, I think people are starting to come on. They're seeing the disparity between the debt and the speed of progression. And I think that because of the image, we we do still have a way to go to bridge that gap between the influencers of the young people themselves, and their industry. If you were sitting in front of a big group of teenagers right now who didn't really know where they wanted to go with their life, and they think of roofing, they think, well, I don't want to be a roofer. What would your message be to them?
That's a great question. I'm going to defer to somebody that I have a lot of respect for, and that's Elon Musk. And I was very privileged towards the end of my career to be able to work with the team over at Tesla Solar Roof. And when you work with them, you have to understand their rules, the rules that they play by. And these are the 5 rules of innovation. And the first rule is challenge the regulation or challenge the system or make requirements less dumb. Okay, I've seen it 3 different ways, so I tell you all 3. And basically, what that means is if you're coming out of high school and you have ideas of how things should be, this is a great industry to be in. Number 2 is delete the part or process. We want to make things simple. So if you're the type of person who looks at the world and says, that's not necessary, we can make that better, it's easier if you do it this way, this is a great industry to be in. Number 3 is optimize. We're going to now build something that's bigger than just a one-person operation. I can see myself with an army of individuals all rowing together in the same direction. If you like that, this is a great industry for you. Number 4 is accelerate. Now let's take that army and let's be a force multiplier. Let's focus on a single task. Let's have a mission, a vision, a hedgehog concept, or utilize the flywheel effect, as Jim Collins says. And let's all get something accomplished so that we can change the world. If you're into that, this is a great industry to be in. And the last one is automate. Now, how can we do that so it's set on a terms of automation to where it doesn't need us to go in and manipulate things and change things on a regular basis or be a part of every step? If you find that that's intriguing to you, this is a great industry to be in because we get to do all of those every day.
Ken, that is just so true. And I am seeing so many young people coming into roofing right now. In fact, a majority of the technology companies that I'm working with are young people. They are, in their late 20s, early 30s, and they see all of the opportunity within the trades, but especially within roofing, to optimize, to accelerate, to do all those things. And they're creating these technological solutions that I think are just, I'm watching the revolution and the change day by day, and the contractors who are embracing that and embracing hiring this next generation, and really looking at breaking some of the rules, are the ones that you're seeing accelerate. And it's so exciting to watch, because you and I've been watching this for quite a while, and I know Luke has, on from his perspective. In Europe, it's happening everywhere, and it's really exciting. So for those career path, let's talk just a little bit, because I know we're getting right to the end of our session, but just career path, as you are talking to the parents of these young people coming out. And when I say young people, men and women coming out of school, kind of making some of these decisions, what are some of the things you would say to the parents on why this is just such a great opportunity for their kids?
Well, one thing I would say is every parent wants to see their child be happy and succeed. And if I think that if I had gone into any other industry, there's no way I would be where I am today. I think that there's a certain opportunity that the roofing industry poses that you just don't find elsewhere. And I actually had the opportunity to do this because there was a strong construction program in my hometown in all of the high schools. And I would go in each year and I would talk to the high school students and I would get this question. And one time I was asked to come in do career day, where they had the student, seniors, and their parent, usually the mother, that would come in and they would sit down and I would get peppered with these type of questions. And so what I did in many of those instances is I just told a story. I said, as I was going through and building a business, and we, hundreds of employees and millions of dollars in revenue, there's a lot of headaches that come with that. Where was my happy place? Where is the one place that I could go to and just kind of relax and just feel calm and become happy and feel like we're being productive? And that was on the roof. Even as president of the company with multiple locations, hundreds of employees, I loved being on the roof. There's something rewarding with putting in an honest day's work, being able to look back and see your hard efforts into something that's going to provide safety and protection for others and get paid for it. Like there's just something about that made me happy. And what I started realizing is roofers tend to be more satisfied in life, better fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, children, whatever you want to look at metric wise. They tend to be better in society than many others that went after this maybe dollar sign or a career that they thought would produce something that ended up not. Like there are lawyers who are leaving they have law degrees. They made money. They're leaving law because of how horrible it makes them feel having to constantly be in a state of argument with others. And what's interesting is I have a brother-in-law who I'm amazingly proud of, who was just this incredible attorney. And he left it. And what is he doing now? He's a construction manager for the largest home builder in the United States, and he could not be happier. Like, I love getting together with him. We have a blast. I've seen the transformation. So I know that it works. And that's what I would suggest.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Ken, from everything you've said. But, as always, with every interaction you come to, you bring so much value. And, our promise is to be the vehicle to take your voice to the industry, to people outside the industry, to give some advice to them within it, and to shine a light on it for those out with it. So, as always, Ken, thank you so much for your insights, and look forward to having you on another time soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Ken, so much. I mean, when you talk about People Make Roofing, you are it. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of your wisdom. It's just been, as always, incredibly inspirational.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. And if anyone has any questions or would like to do a deep dive in anything that I said, they're more than welcome to reach out to me. My website is mrkenkelly.com. Happy to take this offline and chat a little more.
Love it.
Appreciate you, Ken. Thank you.
Be sure for everyone out there to check out all of the People Make Roofing web podcasts that we have out there. They are all over Luke's LinkedIn. I tell you what, you can engage, you can get into conversations, all kinds of information. So be sure to check out Roofing Talent of America, both on LinkedIn, the website, everywhere else, Luke. And of course, Roofers Coffee Shop, we have it right there under podcasts. Check out People Make Roofing, and also on all of the podcast channels. Be sure to set your notifications so you don't miss a single episode.
And thank you for listening, guys. We've got more tremendous guests like Ken Kelly coming up soon, so stay tuned for more, and we will see you then.
See you then. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to People Make Roofing. Together with Roofing Talent America and rooferscoffeeshop.com, we hope to shape the future of our industry. Share this episode and keep the conversation going, because people truly make roofing.